I am watching a documentary movie on Tubi about a group of scientists that also do artwork that are doing a project on, or who are doing a project on GMO foods and what it looks like when being photographed or cultured, right? Like when they do cultures of it in petri dishes and they take photographs of it and then do an art show of it. And so one of the scientists dies, his wife dies, and she's also a scientist, and he has to call 911. And upon 911's arrival, the 911 people see like a laboratory and call the FBI because they think that it's a terrorist project. So this all takes place in Buffalo, New York, where nothing happens in Buffalo, New York. Nope. Then they give this scientist and a couple of other scientists like a really hard time and a lot of dollars time too.
What's going on in the world of science and biology, or what is called now the life sciences, is that there's really big money attached to all of it because big corporations are patenting life forms and then basically get a monopoly on a market.
Two things we were most interested in. Number one was the consolidation of food resources in the hands of a few multinational corporations. And, it gives them carte blanche anywhere. The kind of leverage that they would have internationally is almost unspeakable. In Europe,
Leverage.
I haven't noticed that the labeling's really different.
Well, you have to say whether food's got GMO content in it or not. Or GMO free, it's becoming a big thing. And where I live, in the northeast of Scotland, then the coastal region where I live is the first region to actually declare itself GMO free.
And this is an extremely expensive case. They've spent a lot of money on this case.
We're raising $5,000 here, $2,000 there.
$9,000. We're going to sell this.
I
Last
think
chance.
it went too far.
All right. $9,000. We're going to go on for $9,000 to.
I think it's right, but I think it went too far. Right.
So they tried to pin
I recognize
some
him.
charge related to terrorism on Steve Kurtz. That was obviously absurd, but he was creating an artwork involving genetically altered food. He and a colleague are now under indictment for wire fraud and mail fraud, having to do with the techniques by which he obtained the $250 worth of materials that he used in the
$250.
artwork, which sounds trivial, but he's facing a sentence of 20 years in prison.
20 years?
This is a very, very, very important case, and
No sense.
So that gave me such breathing room. One of the reasons that I'm healthier today is just because I don't have to keep that schedule up, and that level of stress has just come down considerably. And a lot of it was because of that auction.
Did you ever expect that it would get this far?
No, I'm still surprised. I'm surprised that there is this continued statement being made by government representatives that they think there's a health or safety
That's his
situation.
lawyer.
I guess they're attempting to justify what they're doing by saying that. They had a parade of agents in the courtroom today. I'm sure they have better things to do for all of us than be there witnessing a routine arraignment, but they decided to do that. I think the whole thing is overplayed. My client has indicated that he's not a criminal, doesn't commit a crime, and intends to prove that when we get to the courtroom.
Do you know what's wrong with Professor Farrell?
Excuse me, I have no clue what's wrong with Professor Farrell. I know that there's some kind of illness there.
The case is the United States versus Steve Kurtz and Robert Farrell, and the charges are 2 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of mail fraud.
Robert Farrell, who's the scientist who was working with Steve, bought and mailed some of the agents that Steve used, and that was done without a
I think it's
formal
the part
requisitioning
that I'm trying to show
I
you.
think it's the first time this has ever
I
happened
think it's coming up.
in the history of federal court, where somebody is being charged for fraud, but no party feels defrauded. So neither the University of Pittsburgh nor the company that was shipping them the items felt defrauded. All felt this is the way that science is done. People are shipping things around, they're borrowing things, especially in the university. The idea is that this is a sharing place of knowledge, and especially amongst university professionals, that was seen as being the only way that projects like the Human Genome Project could even get finished.
We knew we were not bioterrorists, we had nothing dangerous in the house, and that feeling lasted for quite a while, and soon it would all be over.
This is not uncharacteristic of these cases, where they will first investigate them for something that they're calling terrorism. And then when it goes through their whole process, it's for some other charge.
The FBI caught us both at the weakest point. As I had just lost my wife of 27 years, and Bob had just had a relapse of non-Hodgkin's, which then got complicated because he got a melanoma. And then after that, partly because of the pressure from the FBI, he had a stroke.
Is that a problem to continue to
No, as we said in court today, the rules regarding arraignment are really designed to
Does the prosecutor?
as long as Mr. Farrell has indicated he's aware of the time deadlines, he has the right and the privilege to extend them. No, it was reported in court today that Mr. Farrell seeks to travel on one more occasion with his family, and then he'll be beginning some treatments. The government had no objection to sending him.
What happens if he doesn't survive? His lawyer indicates a possibility.
Well, nothing's been said in court in that respect at this point. We are intending to proceed with this matter, and certainly the defense lawyers will be advising the court as to the condition and the progress of this case. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's all bullshit. You can't report that.
I think it's incredibly hard on their parents when they see their child in trouble, and there's really not a thing that they can do except sit back and watch it. So it's been very difficult for them. The only good thing I can say that maybe came out of that is my father abstained, lifetime Republican, from voting, and my mom did not vote Republican. She voted for Kerry. So their idea of the American mythology really was shattered. The hammer that's making you rethink that is, your child being taken into custody.
They have the overwhelming amount of force still in this case. We cannot be fooled into thinking that just because we've been very successful thus far, that we represent a formidable defense.
What happens to me affects the sphere of the art world tremendously, which is why this auction happened that we raised $167,000 for. We all know what's at stake. It's the institution. It's not just me personally, right? It's our cultural institutions themselves. And then Bob, of course, one of the most famous geneticists in the United States.
Hi, I'm Peter Coyote. I'm an actor.
Hey, I know
and
you.
I'm speaking today for Robert Farrell, who is the former chair of the Department of Human Genetics at the Pittsburgh Graduate School of Public Health. I'm speaking for him because for a variety of reasons, he can't speak for himself. These are his words. From the beginning of the whole affair, I felt that I was simply collateral damage. From the start, the FBI seemed to have been interested in Steve's politics. I got the impression that they were against the activities of the art ensemble and Steve, and this was a way to get him. Steve has an idea that they want to frighten anyone, including scientists, who question what go on in this country. I don't think I did anything wrong. I would do the same thing again with Steve or anyone if they wanted reagents and they were serious people that convinced me that they were doing all this for educational reasons. That's the whole point, to educate the public about what is going on in science today. If I've broken any law as far as Steve's concerned, I've broken it 1,000 times because I've had many people in my lab to learn these techniques and given biological reagents to many students to work with. Genetically modified foods,
GMO,
inserts genes from one kind of plant or animal into another.
Sounds nasty.
Using viruses as a carrier.
Ew.
We have no idea what the long-term repercussions of these transplants are going to be. Genetically modified foods are not labeled. You can't go into a supermarket and find out that the milk you're drinking has bovine growth hormone in it, or that the tortillas you're buying are made with genetically modified corn, or that the soy you're buying has been made with genetically modified soy. So all the citizens of the United States have been turned into unwitting experimental victims
That means
of
you.
a mass marketing industrial phenomenon which has no regard whatsoever for their health, whose regard is basically about increasing wealth for shareholders and increasing the viability of the corporations and increasing the lock on the food supply
Lock,
of the
man.
corporations.
They got all the keys.
The choice of whether to consume genetically modified crops is everyone's to make for themselves. The agribusiness has introduced these products into the food chain without people being aware of it. It has all happened with the government's tacit approval because they've not informed people what was happening. I guess they didn't want me and Steve to make anyone aware of this either.
What should have been?
YOLO, yo. Everything causes cancer. No, we don't just live once. We keep coming back here until we pass the freaking test. I'm gonna continue to watch this. Good night.